Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we are playing as Judas. And Judas is one of those characters that whenever you start out playing it, you know it's going to be quite thrilling, because you do only have that one red heart. So your main priority in this case should be to find some spirit hearts or some health ups to kind of get you going, at least at the start. So getting a health up from the boss here is very important. We also can't risk getting hit way too much because we don't have a guarantee that we'll be able to restore our health. So the first lore with Judas is usually the most tense, and then it gets a bit easier. So for that reason, of course, we got in the item room. I used the crystal ball, hoping that I would get a spirit heart to kind of give me some shield so I can get hit maybe if there's gonna be a hard room. But because that didn't pay out with anything smart, I just decided to stick out with the Book of Belial and actually just go to the boss immediately and try to beat him, and then try to get the health up, and then maybe explore more. There would be a better way of kind of picking or fighting this floor, so we could go to the mini boss first, and then we would have a chance to get 3 more charges to fight our boss with Book of Belial as well. But I think in this case, when you're playing as Judas and you really need those health, well, not really need the health, but it's useful to have, because imagine if you go into that mini boss room and it's something like Ultra Pride and he spawns a giant troll bomb and that deals well full heart of damage and we just die, because that's what happened. So I felt like it's a better idea for us to first go to the boss to hopefully get an item which will help us defeat whatever mini boss is lying there, or get some health, of course, which will shield us for maybe an unfortunate attack. So that's the reason why I kind of did it suboptimally, but at the same time I think it really depends on how comfortable you are, or maybe how lucky you are to which mini boss you get and how well you know them. And it was Super Rat, not Pride, sadly, but either way, Super Rat also has super troll bombs which deal 1 full heart of damage. This room kind of took a while because I didn't have any damage ups except my base damage. And because especially when you can see the enemies when they hide, it's hard to hit them and you don't know where they are. And then there was even the champion enemy which split into 2 enemies, and that was kind of annoying to fight. But thankfully all of our problems are resolved by getting Epic Fetus here, which is not only an incredible source of damage, but it's also an infinite source of bombs, which means that we have no excuse for not finding secret rooms and second secret rooms, which will of course net us a lot of points in the long run. And picking up Epic Fetus here actually brings out quite some consequences that some people might not even think about. Besides, of course, like I said, being able to beat the bosses, it means that we really don't want to take Devil Deals. And you might be saying, okay, but why wouldn't we take Devil Deals? There's no reason to not taking them. They're good items usually. That's true, but the thing is, if you fight the angel rooms or the angels in the angel room by blowing up the rocks, which we can do of course with our bombs or our Epic Fetus shots, you get a lot of points for beating those angels, and any Devil Deals don't actually net you any extra points for visiting them or whatever. So it's in our best interest, because at this point we know that we are strong enough is the right word, we are strong enough to kind of get through the rest of this game without actually needing any super powerful items from the Devil Deal, which is what you usually want to get, of course. But in this case, because we can afford to go to just angel rooms and kill the angels to get even more points. I think every angel gives you about 300 points, which is about the same of a boss trap room. And luckily what ends up happening here, of course, we get the angel deal and we can end up fighting him. We get a lot of points for beating him, but also we get flight, which is probably the most ideal thing that we can get in terms of fighting, or just in general getting items from the angel room. Because having flight with Epic Fetus is a dangerous item, especially if you kind of can't maneuver. But with flight, it's much easier to get over those rocks and chasms and things like that, or just hide and just let your rockets do the work. So for that reason, it's probably a good decision on my part. But I did know, of course, that we would get flight. But even so, even if I knew that we wouldn't get any good items out of the angel room, I think it would be an optimally better decision to go for that, because we can encounter anywhere up to 5 angel rooms from this point. And each of them, if it gives us about 200 to 300 points, that's at least 1,000 points extra that someone who took the Devil Deal pet won't have. So that's kind of a thing to consider, especially when you're strong enough on the second floor that you know that you'll be able to complete the run with only a few items remaining, and that maybe you don't necessarily need devil deals. I think this is the first time this has happened to me in the last 30 days, where I felt strong enough early on to kind of just say no to devil deals. But at the same time, even if we did decide to go the devil deal route, there aren't many items that work well with epic fetus. Like, okay, sure, we could have gotten flight. That's something that's probably more prevalent in the devil deals than the angel rooms. But at the same time, any of those super powerful items like Mom's Knife, or maybe even Brimstone, or these things that you generally look out for, or Maw of the Void, they just don't work well with epic fetus. So I think there's another layer of complexity there as to why we wouldn't want to pick devil deal, because angel rooms do have more defensive items. I think having defensive items with an item that is as dangerous as epic fetus is also a good idea. So besides this, this was actually the only smart decision in this run. There weren't a lot of micro decisions how to reroll things and whatnot. I decided to stick with Yera before, because of course we are hoping to get a black card, and then with the blank card in Yera we can produce a lot of consumables and then a lot of points consequentially. But at this point we're not really worried, because like I said, we do have epic fetus and we did get some damage ups, which was also very nice, so we can do some fancy things here. So our boss rush, contained a few items. Of course the right choice here is Firemind, because it synergizes beautifully with epic fetus. Whenever you kind of pop an explosion or the rocket on the ground, it leaves a flaming trail, and of course when you have a lot of bosses in the same room, you can set those fires really in a way to damage them by a large margin, especially if you set a fire just before they spawn and then they get burned and then they die very fast. Especially those enemies or bosses which are stationary, and because of that, of course, boss rush didn't take more than a few seconds to kind of beat. We're still on the lookout, of course, for secret rooms, second secret rooms, and it's not really a problem because we do have epic fetus, so it's very easy to find them. Just plop rockets all over. Sometimes, maybe if you want to speed it up, what you can do is kind of angle your shots in a way to hit both the enemies and try to find secret rooms at the same time. Like I said, to just kind of save a little bit of time, but in the end, it doesn't really matter how you approach it. Because this run does only go to Mom's Heart, we are on the lookout also for shovels or Awa's runes or any way to go deeper, and thankfully we did get rune back on this floor. There's a positive to the rune back and a negative to the rune back. The positive is of course that we can get runes, Awa's runes, which will allow us to go further, but the negative is that those, I think that the rune bag is not seeded, which means that if we both pick up the same rune bag, that it's not guaranteed that we'll both get the same drops from it. And I think that is also true for some items like Book of Sin and things like that, which in consequence means that a few we can play the same run and have the same items, but I'll find a way down because the drops from my items I've been using is, I've been lucky of course and I got the Awa's runes, and you didn't get them because you were unlucky, and that's it, and there's really no more decision making to be done here. So I imagine some people might find a way down, and at the same time also imagine some people might find sacrifice rooms or maybe a way to kind of re-roll the floor and do it again, and then maybe find a sacrifice room. Our only option here, I think, is beside finding a shovel in the secret room or the devil deal, is getting a payout from the rune bag. And we did get one Awa's rune, but sadly it was the crawl space, which means we can't go further. There would be a way to go further technically if you use the glitch, but I'm opposed to using glitches in dailies because I don't think it's a fair playing ground. But of course, if someone does use that glitch, they're gonna be far ahead of those who didn't, especially if they are one of the lucky ones which did get an Awa's rune. Like I said, I'm not sure about the rune bag, but I'm certain that there are certain items that are not seeded, which means that of course the drops are random and up to luck if you get the rune or the card that you need, and not up to individual skill and decision making, if that makes sense. So because we did get 2 Yarrow runes, my plan here is to kind of play it as much as I can, get a lot of health, generate a lot of coins, and then duplicate it twice. That would be probably the most optimal use of my resources in this case. And what ends up happening, of course, I end up duplicating it a few times. I explode the beggar or the guy. This is not a beggar, he's a the guy who tosses skulls around. And I got a few points here, about 200, so that's pretty good. And with that I just end my run. And our final rank is not too bad, and surprisingly our damage penalty also isn't very high for the fact that we were playing an actual epic fetus run. So things turned out pretty well, I would say. I'm a bit upset that there was not a way down, or I didn't find it. I did look through every second room and second room. But this is just how it's gonna go sometimes. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you next time.